Senior Commander Zixtal adjusted his ceremonial sash as his diplomatic vessel descended toward the ancient military institution known as West Point. Through the viewing portal, he observed the primitive stone structures nestled along a river bend, their gray walls a far cry from the crystalline spires of his homeworld's academies. His second set of eyes blinked in mild amusement. How quaint that these humans still train their warriors in such archaic facilities. The autumn breeze rustled through nearby trees as his ship touched down on the parade grounds, their leaves displaying what his sensors indicated was a seasonal color change. Fascinating but inefficient, much like humans themselves. A small delegation awaited him, standing perfectly at attention despite the early hour. His cultural briefing had mentioned humans maintained strict military protocols, though he had expected something less precise from such a young species. As the ship's ramp descended, Zixtal took a moment to compose himself. This evaluation would determine Earth's potential admission to the Galactic Confederation. After 10,000 years of spacefaring civilization, his people had developed perfect neural training systems. What could these humans possibly teach their warriors that would be of interest? The welcoming party consisted of 3 senior human officers and, surprisingly, a much younger human in a crisp uniform. A cadet, according to his briefing materials. The inclusion of a trainee in a diplomatic reception seemed irregular, but humans were known for their unusual protocols. Honorable Commander Zixtal, the young cadet stepped forward and spoke in perfect High Arcadian, each complex tonal shift executed flawlessly. Welcome to the United States Military Academy at West Point. We are honored by your presence. Zixtal's primary heart skipped a beat. His secondary heart compensated immediately, but the shock remained. High Arcadian was notorious for its difficulty. Most species required neural implants and years of practice to achieve even basic fluency. Yet this young human spoke it naturally, without any technological assistance. Your command of our language is unexpected, Zixtal replied, maintaining his diplomatic composure. How long have you studied? The cadet smiled politely. 3 months, sir. We began preparing for your visit when it was first announced. I found the tonal patterns similar to Mandarin Chinese, which I already spoke. The grammatical structure was more challenging, but your people's historical epics provided excellent learning material. 3 months. 3 months to achieve what took other species years. Zixtal's data tendrils curled slightly, a sign of distress his human hosts likely wouldn't recognize. He had reviewed Earth's educational data during his approach. Humans still required years of study for most subjects. Their neural plasticity shouldn't allow such rapid language acquisition. I see, he managed, gesturing toward the stone buildings. Shall we begin the inspection? As they walked, the senior officers explained the Academy's history. But Zixtal found himself watching the cadets moving purposefully across the grounds. Each one carried themselves with a distinct bearing that reminded him of veteran warriors, yet his briefing indicated these were barely adults by human standards. A group ran past in formation, their feet striking the ground in perfect unison as they sang something in their language. His translator rendered it as a story about infantry warriors, filled with references to determination and perseverance. Not unlike Arcadian martial songs, but these humans were singing while running, an activity that should have made such coordinated vocals impossible. Commander, the cadet's voice interrupted his observations. Would you like to observe our morning physical training session? I believe you'll find our approach to warrior preparation informative. There was something in the cadet's tone. Pride, certainly, but also something else. A subtle hint that suggested Zixtal's carefully neutral expression hadn't quite hidden his initial dismissiveness. The young human was inviting him to have his preconceptions challenged. Looking at the ancient buildings again, Zixtal realized he had made his first error. He had seen the stone walls as primitive, but they had endured for centuries. Like their structures, these humans built things, and warriors, to last. Yes, he replied, all 4 eyes now focused intently on his hosts. Show me everything. His report to the Confederation was already going to be far more interesting than expected. And the day had barely begun. The pre-dawn darkness shrouded West Point in deep shadows as Commander Zixtal followed his hosts to the training grounds. His species' natural bioluminescence made artificial lighting unnecessary on his homeworld. But here, humans moved confidently through the gloom. The temperature had dropped considerably, causing his environmental suit to adjust its settings. "You conduct training in these conditions?" he asked, watching as hundreds of cadets assembled in the darkness. His infrared vision showed their body temperatures were already elevated, despite the cold air. "All conditions, Commander," the senior instructor replied. "Rain, snow, heat, or cold. The Academy's mission continues regardless of weather." The matter-of-fact tone suggested this was entirely normal, though Zixtal's research indicated humans had long since mastered climate control technology. Before he could inquire further, a sharp command rang out across the field. In perfect synchronization, hundreds of cadets began moving. Not in the efficient, energy-preserving manner his species preferred, but at what his sensors indicated was a sustained run. The formation maintained precise spacing despite the low visibility. "These warriors in training," Zixtal began, choosing his words carefully, "they perform this activity daily. Every morning," the cadet from earlier confirmed, now dressed in exercise attire. "Permission to join the formation, sir." At the instructor's nod, the young human trotted off to merge seamlessly into the group. Zixtal's secondary eyes tracked the cadets while his primary pair observed the instructors. The humans called them drill surgeons, and they moved along the formation with practiced ease, offering corrections and occasional words of encouragement. Most fascinating was how they modulated their voices, sometimes sharp and demanding, other times supportive, but always pitched to motivate. "Our records indicate your civilization achieved neural training capabilities thousands of years ago," one of the officers commented. "I imagine this must seem primitive by comparison." The question contained no hostility, only genuine curiosity. Zixtal considered his response carefully. "We found that direct neural interfaces achieved perfect knowledge transfer with minimal physical stress. It was more efficient." The officer smiled. "Efficiency isn't always the goal, Commander. Sometimes the struggle itself is the point." As if to emphasize this statement, the formation began ascending a steep hill. Zixtal's sensors detected increased heart rates and muscle strain among the cadets, yet their pace remained steady. More remarkably, they had begun singing. Hundreds of voices joined in complex harmony, while undertaking significant physical exertion. "They are experiencing discomfort," Zixtal observed, "yet they appear pleased. The shared challenge builds unit cohesion," the instructor explained. "They learn to push through difficulty together, to support one another when fatigue sets in. No neural interface can replicate that experience." Zixtal watched as one cadet began to lag slightly. Immediately, two others adjusted their pace, offering quiet words of encouragement. Within moments, the struggling human had recovered their stride. His data tendrils curled in thought. Such adaptation would be unnecessary with proper neural conditioning, yet he could not deny the effectiveness of the result. The sun began to rise, revealing the full scope of the training grounds. The running formation had completed what his sensors indicated was a significant distance, yet they showed no signs of stopping. More importantly, their coordination had improved rather than degraded with fatigue. "How do you select which humans are suitable for this training?" he asked, genuinely curious now. "Any citizen who meets basic requirements and demonstrates the necessary dedication can apply," the officer replied. "We believe the potential for excellence exists in every human. Our job is to help them discover it." Zixtal's secondary heart beat faster as he processed the implications. His species selected military candidates based on precise genetic and neural markers. The idea of accepting any physically capable volunteer and training them to such standards was unsettling. As the formation passed again, their voices raised in another song. He began composing a priority message to the Confederation. His earlier dismissiveness felt not just premature but potentially dangerous. These humans weren't just training warriors. They were systematically building something far more impressive. And this was only the first hour of their day. Commander Zixtal settled into an observation position at the back of the classroom, his data tendrils twitching with interest as cadets filed in after their morning exercises. Each human had somehow transformed from their physical training attire into impeccable formal uniforms within what seemed like an impossibly short time frame. The room itself appeared deceptively simple. Traditional displays, ancient maps on the walls, and what his scanners identified as actual paper books on many desks. The contrast between these classical teaching tools and the holographic tactical display at the front of the room caught his attention. Today's discussion focuses on the Battle of Thermopylae, the instructor announced, activating a detailed terrain projection. Cadet Chen, please outline the strategic significance of the terrain. A young human stood, and what followed left Zixtal gripping his datapad with increasing pressure. The cadet not only detailed the ancient battle's geographical considerations, but proceeded to critique both sides' tactical decisions with remarkable insight. "But sir," another cadet interjected, raising her hand, "couldn't the Persians have utilized their superior numbers differently if they had?" What followed was an intense but respectful debate about theoretical alternatives to a battle that had occurred over 2 millennia ago. The instructor caught Zixtal's confused expression. "You seem puzzled, Commander. In our academies, we focus on successful strategies," Zixtal explained. "These humans appear to be analyzing a military defeat in great detail. Sometimes we learn more from failure than success," the instructor replied. "Each defeat teaches us something new about adaptation, about human resilience, about thinking beyond conventional solutions." The class shifted to examining modern parallels, and Zixtal's secondary eyes widened as cadets drew connections between ancient tactics and space-age warfare. They discussed everything from supply line vulnerabilities to psychological warfare, their young faces animated with intellectual intensity. "Consider this," one cadet proposed, standing beside the holographic display. "The same principles that allowed a small force to hold off a superior enemy at Thermopylae could be applied to defensive positions in asteroid belts." The cadet proceeded to demonstrate a theoretical space combat scenario that made Zixtal's primary heart race with its implications. More disturbing was how quickly other cadets began improving upon the concept, each building on their classmates' ideas. Within minutes, they had collaboratively developed a defensive strategy that even his experienced military mind found challenging to counter. "Is this level of tactical innovation common?" Zixtal asked the instructor quietly. "We encourage creative thinking," came the reply. "In fact, next week these cadets will attempt to defeat their own strategy. We find that understanding both sides of a conflict leads to better tactical flexibility." A soft chime indicated the class period's end, but several cadets remained behind, deeply engaged in their tactical discussion. Zixtal observed how they gathered around the holographic display, using hand gestures to explain their thoughts, challenging and refining each other's ideas. They appear to continue their education even after formal instruction ends, he noted. The instructor smiled. "Learning isn't confined to classroom hours, Commander. Many of our best tactical innovations have come from cadets exploring ideas in their free time." As they prepared to leave for the next scheduled observation, Zixtal paused by a wall covered in quotes. One caught his compound eyes. "The more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war." "An interesting philosophy," he commented, his translator struggling with the metaphorical implications. "We believe in preparing for every possibility," the instructor explained. "These cadets don't just study military history. They internalize its lessons, challenge its assumptions, and imagine new applications for ancient wisdom." Zixtal's data tendrils coiled thoughtfully as they walked through the halls. His species had long since archived their military history, considering it largely irrelevant in the age of modern warfare. But watching these humans extract fresh insights from ancient battles made him question that decision. He added another note to his growing report. Humans don't simply learn from history. They reinvent it for their future. Exercise extreme caution in assuming their primitive methods indicate technological or tactical inferiority. The day was only growing more concerning by the hour. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the obstacle course as Commander Zixtal observed the next phase of cadet training. His environmental suit registered the temperature as uncomfortably warm for his species, yet the humans showed no signs of limiting their activities. This exercise simulates combat conditions with full equipment load, the instructor explained, gesturing to the cadets adjusting their gear. Each human carried what his sensors indicated was nearly a third of their body weight in equipment, armor, and supplies. Surely such physical burden is unnecessary with modern transportation, Zixtal commented, watching them check each other's equipment with methodical precision. Technology can fail, Commander. When it does, we rely on our training. The instructor's tone carried no judgment, only certainty. Today's scenario. The team must complete the course while maintaining communication silence. One member is designated as injured and must be carried. Zixtal's secondary eyes tracked the first team as they approached the course. Without speaking, the cadets exchanged a series of hand signals he couldn't decipher. His translator implant remained silent. There was nothing to translate. They moved like a single organism, each member responding to subtle cues from the others. When they encountered a 3-meter wall, they executed a complex series of movements that seemed choreographed, yet his analysis suggested they were adapting in real time. How do they coordinate without verbal communication? He asked, data tendrils extending in fascination. Hundreds of hours of practice, the instructor replied. They learn to read each other's body language, anticipate needs, trust their team implicitly. Watch what happens next. The designated injured cadet was now being carried across a series of elevated platforms. The team redistributed their equipment load without pausing, compensating for the additional weight. Most remarkably, they maintained their tactical awareness, scanning their surroundings, even while navigating difficult terrain. This would be so much simpler with gravitic assistance, Zixtal observed, watching them traverse a rope bridge while still carrying their teammate. A cadet instructor nearby overheard and respectfully interjected. Permission to speak, sir. At Zixtal's nod, he continued, we train for the worst scenarios. If we can complete the mission without technological assistance, we can certainly complete it with it. Another team began their attempt, displaying a completely different yet equally effective approach to the same obstacles. Zixtal's analytical mind raced to categorize the variations in technique, the subtle adaptations each team made to accommodate their members' strengths and limitations. They're developing multiple solutions to the same problem, he realized aloud. Exactly, the senior instructor confirmed. There's rarely one perfect approach. We encourage innovation within parameters. Watch how the next team. The instructor's comment was interrupted by an unexpected equipment failure on the course. A securing rope frayed suddenly, threatening to destabilize a platform. Without hesitation, the team adapted. One cadet braced the structure while others quickly executed an alternate route, never breaking their silent communication protocol. That wasn't planned, Zixtal stated, his data tendrils curling with concern. No, but they handled it. The instructor replied calmly. We intentionally introduce random variables. It teaches them to trust their training and adapt to changing conditions. As the afternoon progressed, Zixtal observed team after team navigate the course. Each group demonstrated different techniques, different approaches, different solutions. Yet all maintained the same core principles: unwavering teamwork, constant tactical awareness, and immediate adaptation to challenges. Commander, one of the cadet instructors approached, covered in dust from demonstrating techniques. Would you like to observe how we train for night operations? Zixtal's primary heart skipped a beat. They performed these same exercises in darkness. With additional complications, the instructor smiled. Night operations often involve multiple teams coordinating across complex terrain. Would you like to stay and observe? Looking at his schedule, Zixtal made a decision. His report to the Confederation could wait. This required further study. He needed to understand how these humans had developed such comprehensive training methodologies without neural interfaces or genetic optimization. Yes, he replied, all four eyes focused on the course as another team began their run. I believe this merits extended observation. His data tendrils recorded another note. Human military training emphasizes adaptation and teamwork over technological dependence. Strategic implications require immediate review. The sun began to set, but the day's revelations were far from over. Commander Zixtal stood in what the humans called their simulation center, surrounded by technology that, while primitive by Confederation standards, demonstrated remarkable effectiveness. Cadets moved between traditional training methods and advanced simulators with practiced ease, seamlessly blending old and new techniques. This simulator recreates any combat environment, the technical officer explained, gesturing to a virtual reality chamber. Desert, Arctic, orbital, or deep space conditions. Yet notice how our cadets still maintain their physical training logs on paper. An interesting contradiction, Zixtal observed, his data tendrils extending to analyze the nearest simulation pod. Why maintain archaic record-keeping methods alongside advanced training systems? A cadet working nearby looked up from her handwritten notes. Permission to explain, sir. At her superior's nod, she continued, electronic systems can fail or be compromised. Physical records don't suffer from power failures or cyber attacks. We train to operate in both high-tech and low-tech environments. The demonstration continued as a team of cadets entered the simulator for a space combat scenario. Zixtal watched with growing interest as they coordinated their response to a complex orbital engagement. Their tactics showed remarkable adaptability, switching seamlessly between advanced targeting systems and manual calculations. They appeared to be deliberately disabling their tactical assistance systems, he noted, secondary eyes tracking the exercise with increasing concern. Standard protocol, the instructor confirmed. All cadets must demonstrate proficiency both with and without technological support. Watch what happens next. The simulation suddenly shifted, introducing a massive electromagnetic pulse that disabled most of their systems. Without hesitation, the cadets switched to manual operations. One began calculating orbital trajectories by hand, while others maintained formation using visual references alone. Impressive, Zixtal admitted, though surely such skills are rarely needed in modern warfare. A senior cadet instructor stepped forward, his bearing respectful but confident. 2 years ago, during the Jupiter Station crisis, a solar flare knocked out primary systems for 3 hours. The station maintained perfect defensive positioning because the crew could navigate by stellar positioning alone. Zixtal's data tendrils curled in surprise. His species had long since abandoned teaching such basic skills, relying entirely on automated systems. The implications were disturbing. The next demonstration showcased cadets practicing with holographic star charts while simultaneously maintaining proficiency with paper maps and compasses. They discussed contingency plans for scenarios ranging from full technological failure to advanced cyber warfare. Here's something you might find interesting, Commander, the technical officer said, activating a different simulator. This program recreates historical battles with modern technology overlays. Cadets must solve ancient tactical problems using both contemporary and traditional methods. A group of cadets entered the chamber, facing a recreation of a naval battle from Earth's Second World War. They had access to modern sensor systems, but were required to also demonstrate understanding of basic principles like wind patterns and celestial navigation. Your warriors learn to fight in multiple technological eras simultaneously, Zixtal observed, his primary heart beating faster as he grasped the implications. We call it full-spectrum preparedness, the instructor explained. Technology is a tool, not a crutch. Our cadets must be equally effective with or without it. As if to emphasize this point, the simulation suddenly shifted to Stone Age conditions. The cadets adjusted immediately, applying the same tactical principles with primitive tools that they had used with advanced technology moments before. One final demonstration, the technical officer suggested, leading them to a different area. Here, cadets were practicing emergency repairs on both advanced equipment and simple mechanical devices. They must understand the principles behind the technology, explained a senior cadet. Not just how to use it, but how to fix it, improvise it, or function without it if necessary. Zixtal added another urgent note to his report. Human military training deliberately maintains capabilities across all technological levels. Their warriors can effectively shift between technological eras at will. Looking around the facility once more, he noticed something else. The cadets appeared to genuinely enjoy this comprehensive approach to training. They weren't just learning to use technology. They were learning to master it, adapt it, and survive without it. Your species, he said carefully, prepares for a remarkable number of contingencies. The instructor's response was simple but profound. Because we've learned the hard way that anything that can happen will happen. The afternoon sun filtered through tall windows as Commander Zixtal observed what the humans called a leadership laboratory. His data tendrils recorded with increasing interest as cadets rotated through different roles in complex problem-solving scenarios. Each cadet must demonstrate proficiency in both leading and following. The senior instructor explained, watching a team tackle an elaborate challenge involving resource allocation during a simulated planetary evacuation. Today's exercise tests their ability to make rapid decisions under pressure. The current team leader, a quietly confident young human, listened intently as her squad reported various complications in their scenario. Zixtal noted how she processed multiple information streams simultaneously, a skill his species typically required neural enhancement to achieve. Your previous leader performed differently, he observed, comparing the two approaches. Every cadet develops their own leadership style, the instructor nodded. We don't enforce a single method. Instead, we help them discover what works best for their personality and strengths. A sudden change in the simulation introduced a critical resource shortage. The team leader quickly reorganized her squad's priorities, but what caught Zixtal's attention was how she incorporated suggestions from her subordinates. She accepts input from those under her command, he noted, his secondary eyes tracking the group dynamics. The best solutions often come from unexpected sources, a cadet instructor explained. We learn to listen to every voice while maintaining clear command structure. The scenario escalated further as simulated civilian populations began panicking. The team leader stepped back, allowing another cadet to take point based on their crisis management experience. The seamless transition of authority made Zixtal's primary heart skip a beat. They exchange leadership roles during active operations, he asked, data tendrils curling in surprise. Adaptable command structure, the senior instructor confirmed. If someone has better expertise for a specific situation, we encourage tactical reorganization. Watch what happens next. The team encountered a problem with no clear solution. Instead of freezing or waiting for instructions, they broke into smaller units, each testing different approaches simultaneously. The leader coordinated their efforts while maintaining overall mission focus. Fascinating, Zixtal murmured. They operate independently while maintaining unit cohesion. A new group began their scenario, this time facing a deep space rescue operation. The designated leader struggled with initial decisions, but instead of replacing them, the instructors allowed them to work through their challenges. You permit failure during training? Zixtal asked, observing the team's growing confidence as they learned from their mistakes. Failure is an excellent teacher, the instructor replied. Better to learn these lessons here than in real combat. Notice how the team supports their leader while maintaining mission effectiveness. As the afternoon progressed, Zixtal observed multiple leadership styles, from bold and decisive to quiet and analytical. Each cadet brought unique approaches to problem solving, yet all demonstrated the same core principle: adaptable, responsible command. Your species seems to embrace diversity in leadership, he noted, watching another team rotation begin. Different challenges require different solutions, the senior instructor explained. A leader who excels in one situation might struggle in another. By training everyone in multiple roles, we develop flexible, resilient command structures. The final exercise of the day introduced an unexpected element: the removal of all senior leadership, forcing junior cadets to step up immediately. Their response left Zixtal adding another urgent note to his report. Human military training creates layers of redundant leadership capabilities. Every warrior is prepared to both lead and follow. Strategic implications require immediate assessment. As the session concluded, he watched the cadets debriefing their performance, openly discussing their mistakes and successes. The honesty of their self-evaluation and their willingness to learn from each other added yet another layer to his growing concerns. Commander, a cadet approached with proper military courtesy. Would you like to observe our evening tactical planning session? We're gaming out first contact scenarios with potentially hostile species. Zixtal's data tendrils coiled tightly. Yes, he replied, all four eyes focused intently on the young human. I believe that would be most instructive. The implications of how these humans approached leadership were becoming clearer and more unsettling with each passing hour. Commander Zixtal stood at the edge of the Academy's largest training ground as the sun began to set, all four eyes fixed on the elaborate demonstration about to unfold. Senior cadets had prepared what they called an integrated capabilities exercise, combining everything he had observed throughout the day into one comprehensive display. This scenario simulates a complex multi-domain operation, the senior instructor explained, gesturing toward the assembled teams. The cadets must coordinate ground, air, and space elements while adapting to rapidly changing conditions. The exercise began with practiced precision. Teams moved with fluid efficiency, establishing security positions and communication networks. Zixtal's data tendrils extended fully as he recorded the intricate dance of humans and machinery working in perfect synchronization. They're operating on multiple levels simultaneously, he observed, watching ground teams coordinate with simulated orbital support. Each unit functions independently yet maintains perfect coordination with the whole. A cadet instructor nodded. Integration is key. Notice how they adapt when we introduce complications. On cue, the scenario shifted. Several key communication systems went dark, forcing the cadets to switch to alternate methods. Without missing a beat, they transitioned to backup protocols, using everything from hand signals to improvised relay stations. Most fascinating, Zixtal noted, his secondary heart racing as he analyzed their response. They anticipated the failure. We train for everything to go wrong, the instructor explained, because sometimes it will. The demonstration escalated as simulated hostile forces appeared from unexpected vectors. The cadets' response left Zixtal's primary heart pounding. Instead of following standard military doctrine, they began implementing unconventional solutions that his tactical analysis struggled to predict. One team created a diversion using minimal resources, while another exploited a seemingly insignificant terrain feature to gain tactical advantage. Most impressively, they achieved this without direct communication between units, operating on what the humans called commander's intent. Their tactical innovations appear spontaneous, Zixtal observed, data tendrils coiling in concern. Initiative is encouraged, the senior instructor replied. Each cadet is trained to think independently while supporting the overall mission. Watch what happens when we cut them off from command entirely. The next phase of the demonstration isolated each unit, forcing them to operate without higher guidance. Instead of faltering, the cadets seemed to perform even more effectively, demonstrating remarkable tactical creativity. They function better with less control, Zixtal asked, his translator struggling to convey his confusion. They function well under any conditions, corrected the instructor. That's the point. The finale of the demonstration showcased a complex extraction operation. One team simulated casualties, requiring others to adjust their plans mid-mission. The seamless integration of medical care, tactical movement, and strategic objective completion demonstrated a level of adaptability that made Zixtal's data tendrils quiver. These skills, he began carefully, they maintained them even after graduating. These are just the basics, a senior cadet explained, approaching after the exercise. Advanced training builds on these foundations. Would you like to review our extended operations protocols? Zixtal added another urgent note to his report. Human military capabilities appear to improve exponentially after basic training. Previously assessed threat levels require immediate upward revision. As the demonstration concluded, teams gathered for debriefing, immediately beginning to analyze their performance and suggest improvements. Their drive for continuous enhancement, even after demonstrating exceptional capability, added yet another layer to Zixtal's growing concerns. One final question, he addressed the senior instructor. How many of your planet's military academies conduct training at this level? All of them, came the reply. Though each has their own specialties and traditions, West Point is just one of many. The implication struck Zixtal like a physical blow. Everything he had witnessed today, the integrated operations, the adaptable command structures, the tactical innovations, was being replicated and refined at multiple locations across the planet. Perhaps, he suggested, trying to keep his voice steady, we should discuss your planet's defensive requirements within the Confederation. The sun had fully set now, but the training grounds remained active. In the growing darkness, new teams of cadets were preparing for night operations, their determination unchanged by the late hour. Zixtal's final note of the day was brief but urgent. Recommend immediate revision of all previous assessments regarding human military potential. Commander Zixtal stood before the Galactic Confederation Security Council, his data tendrils perfectly still as he prepared to deliver his report. The chamber's crystalline architecture reflected the serious expressions of representatives from 100 spacefaring civilizations. Honored Council, he began, his voice modulated to convey appropriate gravity. I must revise all previous assessments regarding human military capabilities. My observations at their academy require immediate attention. The holographic displays activated, showing carefully selected footage from his visit. The council members stirred as they watched humans performing their training exercises, their own data appendages and sensory organs registering increasing concern. As you can observe, Zixtal continued, human military preparation differs fundamentally from our standardized approaches. They do not rely solely on technological advancement or neural enhancement. Instead, they have developed a comprehensive system that exceeds our traditional evaluation metrics. He displayed the morning running formation, now annotated with physiological data. They deliberately train under adverse conditions, building what they call resilience. Each warrior learns to function at peak efficiency regardless of environmental challenges. The High Counselor's central eye focused intently on the display. You seem disturbed, Commander. These are merely training exercises. Respectfully, High Counselor, these are not mere exercises. Zixtal's data tendrils curled with emphasis. Humans don't simply practice warfare. They internalize it. Every graduate of these academies emerges with capabilities we previously considered impossible without genetic modification. The chamber erupted in murmured discussions as he showed footage of the leadership exercises. They create warriors who can both command and follow, who operate independently yet maintain perfect unit cohesion. Most concerning, they achieve this through methods we cannot easily counter or replicate. Surely their technological limitations, another council member began, are irrelevant. Zixtal interrupted, breaking protocol in his urgency. They train to operate at all technological levels simultaneously. A human warrior can shift from operating advanced spacecraft to conducting primitive warfare without losing effectiveness. They call this full-spectrum capability. The council watched in silence as he displayed the final demonstration footage. Note how they adapt to losing technology, communications, and command structure. Each limitation makes them more creative, more innovative, more dangerous. Your recommendation, Commander. The High Counselor's tone carried unusual weight. Immediate acceptance of Earth into the Confederation, Zixtal replied without hesitation. With full military partnership status. The chamber erupted again, but he continued. Furthermore, I recommend we begin studying their training methods. The academy I visited, West Point, is merely one of many. Each facility produces warriors with similar capabilities, but different specializations. The humans are primitive, one council member objected. Their spacecraft barely reach their outer system. Their technology is young, Zixtal agreed, but their military traditions are ancient and refined. They have spent thousands of years perfecting the art of creating warriors. More importantly, they have developed training methods that produce results we thought impossible without advanced technology. He displayed his final analysis. Human military potential exceeds all previous projections. Their dedication to training, combined with their adaptability and innovative thinking, makes them uniquely valuable as allies and uniquely dangerous as potential adversaries. The High Counselor's appendages shifted in the pattern indicating deep concern. You believe they represent a significant military force. I believe, Zixtal replied carefully, that we have fundamentally misunderstood human capabilities. Their warriors train not just for combat, but for any challenge. They build not just soldiers, but leaders. They prepare not just for war, but for any contingency. His final holographic display showed cadets gathered after their evening training, still discussing improvements and innovations despite their obvious fatigue. Most importantly, they never stop improving. Everything they learn, they refine. Every capability they develop, they enhance. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. These humans, with their primitive technology and their ancient stone buildings, had developed something the Confederation had never considered. A training system that produced warriors who could operate effectively under any conditions. The vote stands before the Council, the High Counselor announced. Shall we extend full membership to Earth? Zixtal's data tendrils recorded the unanimous affirmative response with satisfaction. His mission was complete, but his warning was clear. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers, but their endless drive to improve, adapt, and overcome. The galaxy would never be quite the same.